Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church, Hanley. I'm Pastor Charmley, and I'm here today at the tiny little church, tiny little Norman church at Ballidon in the Derbyshire Peak District. And this is a glorious example of a little Norman church. It's been, as you can see, renovated. It had big windows installed. It had two. Initially it's built in the 12th century, let's start there, around about 1100. And at the time there was something of a village here. There are still marks on the hills showing where fields were. It stands in the middle of fields today. It's disused, it was derelict the first time I visited. I visited it about 10 years ago and it was derelict, but it's owned by the Friends of Friendless Churches. It is redundant, it is open every day for visitors. And I would encourage anyone in the area to visit it, to enjoy its beauty. Here we are in a field. There is parking nearby, but the church is in the middle of fields. It was built, as I say, about 1100, and it was then renovated on a number of occasions. Various alterations were made. When we go inside, we shall see actually the font, which is the most important, one of the fittings of the church, and that is 17th century. But there were two main renovations in 1820 and then in 1882, and the current building, current appearance with those big windows is from 1882. So let's have a look around the area before we go inside. So here we are, the outside. You can see it's a very simple two-cell building, the two cells being the nave and the chancel. And it retains, although its windows are all 19th century and the porch is 19th century, it retains most of the original walls, most of the original masonry, and you can see even that window, that little window in the chancel, low side window as they're known, and we're not quite sure what they were for, but they're located there. Maybe they were to allow people to view the altar from inside or something else. Now up on the hills you've got a building platform there, and then you've got the remains of ridge and furrow, which indicates that there was a village here in the Middle Ages. That although the church today, as you can see, stands in splendid isolation, you've got your ridge and furrow, you've got building platforms. This is a lost village. There is a modern village of Ballidon which is a little further away, but this is a lost village. Many of them, they occur because of the Black Death, which wipes out a huge proportion of the population. Here we are with the COVID, and that is a problem, but nobody ever thought the COVID would be as lethal as the Black Death, and it wasn't. You can see in the valley the ridge and furrow, and those were medieval fields. Each furrow would have been worked by a different peasant. Common land. The church stands here high above the valley, but again you've got this building platform and the ridge and furrow behind it. Suggest that you can see the modern village beyond. When we go around here, got to be a bit careful. This is cow farming country, cattle country, and you know what cattle country means. It means cowpaths. So we shall be very careful not to step in any, because my car would not like it. These little medieval churches, as I say, because it's isolated today, we forget perhaps that it was the centre of the village once upon a time. Again, you see down there in the valley the ridge and furrow, the front porch, open. Derbyshire, when I'm recording this, which is the first full week in July 2021, Derbyshire's not yet reopened. There we are, there's the little modern village. You can see why the church sadly closed. But and there's the path up from the road. So let's go inside. Well, here we are inside Ballidon Church. The dedication is to All Saints, which is of course a very generous dedication. It's found sometimes in English villages. And when we consider that in fact, of course, all Christians are saints, we are called saints, then it is indeed a church for all saints as well as the church of all saints, and all who are called may come. You can see the interior today with the scraped walls. That's very typical of the Victorians. They erroneously believed that these medieval churches would have had scraped walls. They wouldn't. The walls would have been plastered, lime-washed and painted. So it would have been much more impressive to look on than it is today, and also not quite so gloomy. It gets quite gloomy here sometimes. Well, let's have a look around and see some of the fittings, and particularly the font. Here we are. You can see the very simple interior. The chancel arch, although it has been renewed in a Norman style rather than in a pointed style. The seating is open back benches. They were quite popular with a certain type of Anglo-Catholic, and you can see the Anglo-Catholic elements here, the stone altar there, the side altar, the high altar at the east end. Now, one of the reasons why there is that quite a rise is the church is built into the side of a hill, and so naturally the chancel is at a higher level than the nave. It's not that it's been lifted up so much deliberately, but as I've said, the great thing here is the font. Here is the font. Now, unfortunately, the light is in the wrong place, really, but the font visible here is, as I say, it's 17th century. I'll just see if I can open the door a bit. So there we are. There is looking into the chancel, and we can look out through the south door at the fields beyond. And in the Middle Ages, there would have been a village out there before the Black Death decimated the area. Now, opening the door doesn't change it very much, but you can just about see here the font. And if you look at the font, it's rather odd, isn't it? Because that's upside down. How is it that the font has inverted imagery upon it? Well, we don't really know. And again, that should be a shield, and that should be the other way up. So why is the font inverted like this? We don't know. It's a rather nice wrought iron lid and handle to the lid to lift it up. So why is the font upside down like this? We don't know. It's clearly been carved this way. I mean, the bowl is the bowl. So why is it apparently upside down? This is the great mystery of the Ballidon font. Nobody knows. But this is very interesting in that it is 17th century. It is clearly from a sort of high church 17th century Laudian style. But again, very, very simple, very small building. Something has been done in the 19th century to try and make it a little bit posher. So you've got this rather awful stone altar and the board behind. You've got some rather nice. There we are. There is the creed, and that's on tiles. So you see, reading desk up here. It's interesting. The reading desk is actually higher than the pulpit, because the reading desk is in the chancel, and the pulpit is in the nave. So the pulpit for the sermon, the vicar has to descend. The minister has to descend into the nave to share it with the common people. The term nave, of course, doesn't come from the common people being knaves. It comes from the Latin navis, a ship. And here we ascend the chancel steps, being very careful. And there is the high altar, and you can see how high it is. There is a tabernacle behind it, and that would be where the reserved sacrament would be kept. And there we have the risen Christ and Mary Magdalene. It's a standard image. I've seen it in other churches before, though not often at the East End. We have the Ten Commandments. Again, it's the same style. And the woodwork is rather good. It's not trying too hard. There is, you can see a little vestry here. It would have had a screen across it. I might probably, in fact, they did have a harmonium here, but that developed a woodworm and had to be destroyed. And here we are. In fact, yes, there's the tiny little vestry. That's where the vicar would have his vestments, where he would get dressed. It's a tiny little space and has the electric meter in there now. Even there was a little fireplace for him, you can just see it there. And that would have been a door at one point, so he could come in through it, but it's been turned into a window. Here we are again. This would have been the choir vestry behind the organ, but again there's no organ now. The organ has had to be taken away. And here is the altar. Yes, very much an altar with a piece of stone let into it, very Tractarian, very ritualist even. One of the old oil lamps sitting in a window here. And here we are again looking west. So I'll offer a few more thoughts before we wrap up the video. So there we have it, All Saints, Ballidon, a tiny Norman church in the middle of fields, in the middle of a lost village, one of the lost villages of England. It's remarkable, in fact, that the church has survived so long, and it's remarkable it's open again. I remember over a decade ago when I first visited Ballidon, it had closed in the very recent past, and the building had broken windows, clearly birds living inside the building, and it was all rather sad and derelict and disused. But look at it now. The Friends of Friendless Churches, the people who've done the restoration, done a wonderful job. And if you're ever in the Derbyshire Peak District, in the Ashbourne area, this is one of the places to visit. It's off the beaten track, it's not some great cathedral, it's not some great stately home, but it is a proper old English church. I apologise for the audio quality at this point. I've somehow got the microphone facing the wrong way. Give me a moment. Well, I hope that the audio of the last part of that went well. All I have to say really is it's a wonderful survivor here. A church that has outlived the village for which it was built. A church that, with the end of the 20th century, really, its time as a working church came to an end. The mobility of the people and, of course, the decline of the Church of England left it as a building that the C of E could no longer afford to maintain. A building that really made very little sense for it to be maintained, but now it's open for visitors, and it's there so that if perhaps one day there is a need, it can be opened again for worship. Just to point out a few further details of the building. Like me, you will have noticed the image behind the altar on the front of the tabernacle, and that is again a ceramic tile. We are not that far from the potteries. I'm not sure where it's produced, but it is a lovely piece of the potter's art. The sedilia, this is where the minister would sit. Now, again, this is a Tractarian, this is a ritualist ecclesiological movement church, so this is an imitation, but there would have been a sedilia here already. And again, looking west, you can see there's no, and there's a bell coat, and there would have been a little bell to ding ding on it, and you can see where the chandeliers would have hung. Very simple, very ordinary. Let's just have a look at the ceiling, at the roof. Again, a very simple roof structure, very, very lovely. And let us say a few closing words. So there we are, All Saints, Ballidon, a church founded in the 12th century, a church closed in the 21st century, a church that has survived because there were people who wanted to take care of it and to make sure it didn't fall into ruin, so that, surrounded as it is by the site of its lost village, it is a monument, and a monument that may one day again be used for worship. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I mean, these little videos on local churches are not intended to be exhaustive. I'm not a great historian. I'm just giving a little tour and showing the beauties of some of our medieval churches in the Staffordshire and Derbyshire area. So again, if you're ever in the area, Ballidon Church, well worth visiting, as you can see. A very lovely building. The light quality is wonderful, and it's largely due to the windows that the Victorians installed, and they knew what they were doing. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you. Amen.